Hey everybody, thank you so much for being here, for joining. I hope you guys can hear me, by the way. Hope my mic is working good. We were gonna wait for a few other people, but looks like we got mostly everybody here. Either way, we have our invite link open, so anyone who has not joined and still needs to join can continue joining. So as a quick introduction for those that do not know me, I'm Gianna. I am founder of Tandem Bridge Solutions. We are a staffing and recruiting agency based here in Medellin. So quick housekeeping before we do dive in. So number one, all mics are muted today. So your mic, camera is muted. No one can see or hear you. And then for engagement, I'll ask you to type in the chat box a few times. I did see some people sending in a few messages already. So thank you guys for sending in a few chats for any questions. So throughout the process, if you guys have any specific questions about what I'm explaining, you can feel free to use the Q&A box. So up top, you should see a panel where it says chat. Right next to it, you should see Q&A, and then there should be polls. So if you do have a question, please try not to type it in the chat. Try to type it in the Q&A section. I will be answering them in a dedicated Q&A session at the end of the webinar. And yes, so just to kind of give you some background, guys, I am co-owner and founder of Tandem Bridge Solutions. We are a BPO and RPO based in Miami, but we are fully operated in Medellin, Colombia. I do know we have a few viewers today who are based in Medellin as well, so I'm very happy to have you guys here. And yeah, before I was a business owner, I was working for some time as a director and overseer of digital marketing for a few companies back in the US, and then all remote as well. And then dabbling also a little bit in some sales management roles. So I am very used to, again, the whole remote world, have been in it for quite some time now. So yeah, let's get started. The reason for this webinar too is with the experience I've had in remote working and being a business owner, I've realized that the way we hire and will continue to hire will change and has changed forever. So today I'll be showing you guys how you can adapt before you fall behind, and not to scare you and say you will, but these are some tips you really should keep in your back pocket so that that does not happen, right? Especially if you are a business owner here or planning to hire anybody remote, these are going to be some really important tips. So number one, we are going to be going through some hiring models and also some hybrid options, right? So let's go ahead and dive into the different hiring models available today. I'm sure if you guys are familiar or already have a business, you know what these are. So there's in-house, remote, and then offshore and nearshore, which are stems of the remote model, right? Each of these has strengths. Each of them have weaknesses, and the right choice really does depend on your business type, your budget, and your exact needs, right? So we're going to be going through each of these one by one. By the way, guys, if throughout the process you do want to take screenshots of your screen or take out your phone and take photos of any information you want to keep in your back pocket, feel free to do that as well. So we have in-house. So in-house simply means all of your team members are employed based in the US, working under your direct payroll and management, right? So you either as the business owner, or if you have a hiring manager on board, you guys are hiring these people directly, right? So starting off with cost and scalability, this is the most expensive model. If you hire in-house or are planning to hire in-house, you're going to know this. You are covering directly salaries, benefits, office space, equipment, and taxes. Scaling is going to be slow because, again, hiring is going to take time and you need that significant upfront capital to get things started. As far as talent pool goes, right, you are very limited to your local or regional market, right? That is the whole point of in-house hiring, which can make it harder to fill those specialized roles. As far as culture and communication, which this is something I'll be talking about a little bit later in the webinar, on the plus side here, communication is going to be very simple. So you're in the same place, you're in the same time zone. This is going to make collaboration very strong. And then everybody is going to be immersed in your company culture. So as far as communication and culture, this is an easy win for you guys if you are planning on hiring in-house. As far as compliance and legal, which I don't want to bore you guys too much on this, but it's important to talk about, this is going to be the cleanest option legally. So since everything falls under US labor laws, you have that stronger IP protection, so intellectual property, because all the work is going to stay internal. So that's in-house. As far as offshoring, so this is a version or a model of remote hiring. And this is going to refer to outsourcing to countries that are geographically distant, right? So this can be India, this can be Philippines, this can be Eastern Europe, Eastern Asia. In a lot of these roles, you're going to see more on the tech side, developers and things like that, people that aren't going to be so much client facing. As far as cost scalability, this is usually going to be, not usually, it's almost always going to be your lowest cost model. So you can sometimes hire 2 to 3 offshore professionals for the price of 1 US hire, and then vendors will actually allow you to scale teams up and down very quickly. And then as far as your talent pool, the offshore pool is massive, guys. So like you have hundreds of thousands of skilled professionals in IT, again, development, support, finance, and more. As far as culture and communication, so very, very distinct from what your in-house would be. So the challenges are going to be your cultural gaps, your language differences, your time zone delays, right? This is going to slow down your collaboration unless you do set up for those clear processes and communication rhythms from the jump. As far as compliance and legal goes, this model does add a bit of complexity. So you do need strong contracts to protect IP. You want to avoid what we call worker misclassification, and you want to make sure you cover data security. So without this, you're going to risk things like data breaches, disputes, and this can get very costly later on. So I always tell this to people who are planning on offshoring, and it's that even though you're saving money in the beginning with their salaries, you might be risking a big deposit or a big chunk of money later on when it comes to the legal issues that may arise. All right, and then we have nearshore, which is what we at Tandem Bridge do. And it's what I always recommend, not because we do it, but because in general, this is the best option to choose. So what nearshore is, again, it's still outsourcing, but it means outsourcing to neighboring countries, right? So if you're a US business owner, this is going to mean typically Latin America or countries that are in the same time zone. So that would be EST. In our case, in Colombia, it would be Colombian time. I think we're like an hour different right now because of daylight savings, but again, we're pretty matched up. For this one, costs are definitely lower than what your US in-house is going to be, but usually higher than offshore in Asia, for example. So still you can scale flexibly without those long recruitment cycles, but it's going to be kind of like an in the middle of both. As far as your talent pool, we have still strong developers in countries like Mexico, Colombia, Brazil, and Chile. While it is smaller than the talent pool in Asia, what these regions are going to provide is the specialized technical and professional skills that you're going to want. And then for culture, communication, this is a key advantage, right? So when you hire nearshore, since your time zones are overlapping almost perfectly, you have some cultural similarities. This is going to make your collaboration a lot smoother. Many professionals are bilingual, making that client-facing work possible. So if you do hire for what would be your customer support or your sales, it's going to make that much easier to do, right? And then compliance and legal regulations tend to be closer to what I would say US standards would be. So contracts will be easier to enforce. Your IP control is a lot stronger compared to like your far shore outsourcing is going to be, right? Still, you need to cover your NDAs, your labor standards, and any dispute resolution, you need to cover that in your contracts. But if you have a good lawyer, you should be all good as far as that goes. So we have our different hiring models, and this is what I always like to do, especially when I speak to clients, is do a best fit by business type, right? So we've broken down, let's zoom into what tends to work best by what business type you have, right? So for manufacturing and product, which I don't think any of you guys here have a manufacturing or product business, but still good to know. We usually recommend keeping what would be your R&D and your final assembly, that would be in-house. So you want to make sure all of that is in-house. So these are core, again, they're going to be your core, highly specialized functions that ties directly to your quality and your intellectual property. We want to make sure all of that stays in-house. Things like components, packaging, support functions, that can all be effectively outsourced. And again, with that, you're reducing your costs and you're not sacrificing your quality. So that's what I would say for your manufacturing and product companies. If any of you guys here do anything in the e-commerce world, in the drop shipping world, and you don't have a specific vendor or a manufacturer, and you guys are doing this on your own for whatever reason, this is also a good option, something to keep in mind as well. Or if you do have a vendor, it's important that they are managing it this way as well, so that you know that quality is going to be there. And then for B2B and specialized IT, so this is going to be us at Tandem Bridge. This is our highest number of clients, right? So for this, we usually see that outsourcing often does deliver a very, very strong return, right? So in fact, with this, bringing in external partners for things like complex integrations, if you guys are doing e-procurement, ERP, or any custom system builds, you can yield 5 to 7 times of ROI from outsourcing these specific roles, right? And that's because these are projects where specialized outsource experts will reduce errors as much as possible, and they're going to speed up those timelines. So for this, I wouldn't recommend any in-house at all, to be honest, unless you guys have a very high-ranging client-facing amount of roles as well. Alrighty, then we have our tech and SaaS. So again, very kind of in alignment with your specialized IT, but for tech and SaaS businesses, the hybrid model is really the gold standard, what I would say. So you'll want to keep your leadership, product strategy, any work that's tied to your sensitive IP in-house, right? Always recommend that. But any development, QA, IT, operations, even some customer support can be nearshored or offshored. I recommend nearshoring. That's going to help you scale quickly, control your burn rates. And this hybrid setup is basically how most successful SaaS companies grow sustainably. We do have about 3 to 4 clients currently in this industry, and they've seen this kind of hybrid model work really well for them. And then finally, which I think we have most of our businesses here service-based. So for service-based businesses, so if you're an agency, if you are a support firm, if you are a marketing shop, outsourcing makes the most sense for everything. So customer service, help desk, back office operations, things like that. That way, what happens is the in-house team can stay focused on the higher touch. So if you do happen to have an in-house here, they can stay focused on the higher touch, client-facing roles, so consulting, sales, anything tied to like what your brand experience would be. Because with service space, you have more of a brand experience. So I want to make sure that stays in-house unless you find a really good nearshore person that understands language, understands your culture, and things like that, which we'll go over in just a bit. But other than that, all of that can be outsourced. So the bottom line here is, and again, guys, feel free if you need to take a screenshot, but the bottom line here is the best hiring model is never going to be a one-size-fits-all. And I wish it was like that, but it's just generally not. It's going to depend on your industry. It's going to depend on your priorities, the areas of business that drive the most value. And then the smartest companies do use a hybrid approach, and it's what I always recommend. So you're able to customize the model. You get the right balance of what would be your cost, your scalability, and control. And then you can also like test, right? You can test, okay, we tried in-house for these roles. Let's try outsourcing for these and see what value that's going to bring to your company, right? All right, now we have our boring part, which this is just going to be a one-pager. I won't bore you guys too much with this, but it's our legal and compliances, right? No matter which model you choose, compliance and legal protections, they're non-negotiable. So whether you are hiring with a recruiting firm or a staffing agency like what we would be, or you're doing it yourself, these are non-negotiable. So you want to make sure you have contracts that, again, define your scope of work, your IP ownership, confidentiality, any dispute resolution is all mentioned in your contracts. Specifically at Tandem Bridge, and this is not always necessary, but if you have specific IP that really, really need to be protected, I would recommend even having employees sign an NDA. So this is for any data protection clauses as well to make sure that your information is safe. Again, if you're hiring globally, you want to avoid that worker misclassification. You want to use compliant partners. So all of this stuff, if you're not an expert in, again, having a really good lawyer is important, but again, you want to make sure this all aligns with the model that you're outsourcing with, or if you're in-house sourcing as well. And finally, I wanted to show you this snapshot. If you guys can't see, you can kind of, I don't know if you guys can do like a zoom on the computer, but I wanted to show you this snapshot comparing different nearshore destinations in Latin America. I hope you guys can catch on to the issue here. So you're going to see metrics like, for example, if you see the average developer rate around $55 an hour, Costa Rica and Brazil, 70 plus, Bolivia says it's as low as $50, I think, right? So if you guys have any knowledge on remote hiring or have done any deep digging before, you'll know that this is extremely wrong. This is a wrong and incorrect data graph. If you are someone that is planning on remote hiring or outsourcing, and you're going to Google to try and figure out what the cost would be to outsource these people or for the salary, and you get something like this is not ideal, right? And I'm sorry if you get something like this. Colombian hires specifically, even if they are developers, are most definitely not $55 an hour. If anything, they're 1/3 of that, right? So I always tell owners, do your own research, navigate through different sources, do your due diligence in doing industry, location, salary research. If you need to hire someone to do it for you, do it. It's going to be worth your money. And don't believe the first thing you see, right? Because there's a lot of differing information out there. You want to make sure you get the right information off the jump. And industry research is not complex. It's easy if you do it right. Again, if you need someone to hire it, like you find a freelancer to do an industry research for you, that is pretty easy as well. And then also, I always say this too, and something you guys can kind of take away from this, it's don't choose a country just because of cost, right? Obviously, the idea of outsourcing and hiring remote is to save money, and that's completely understandable. But the right choice is going to eventually end up being based on your industry, your culture, and your business priorities, right? So a chart and things like that, they're a tool, but the real strategy is doing, again, that industry-specific research before making any decision. And that's where, again, we help clients. And even if you hire somebody else, that's where they help you, is kind of aligning your business needs with the right hiring model, choosing the right region, right? So awesome. And again, just an interactive close. If you guys don't want to type in the chat, that's fine. But if you want to type in the chat, if you were to hire abroad, which factor would matter most to you, right? So if you are a business owner here, or if you want to be a business owner, or if you were to hire somebody abroad, which factor would matter most to you? Cost, culture fit, or compliance? Or if it's anything else, you can comment that too. Again, if you guys don't want to use the chat, that's completely fine. So we have section 2. So we covered the different models. We covered what right model is going to be for your business. And now we have the technical of remote hiring. So I'm going to start with something a little bit interesting, and it's this easy apply screenshot. So let me start with this. How many of you guys have seen an application like this on LinkedIn? If you haven't applied remotely or haven't applied on LinkedIn, then that's fine. This is a screenshot from a LinkedIn easy apply. Again, they're just giving 2 or 3 questions. You kind of click easy apply, and then you're done with the application in 30 seconds. So basically anyone with these simple requirements can apply, right? And here's the issue with that, is when your application is that easy, applicants will assume the job is just as easy, right? And that's not what we want. They're going to apply with no effort, they're going to apply with no interest, and they're going to apply with no alignment. And that's how you end up with over 200 resumes that you're never going to hire. So easy apply is your enemy, and I always say this. Remote hiring, more than anything, is going to require rigor. And if you don't build it in, eventually you're going to be the one paying the price. It's not going to be the candidates, it's not going to be the employee, it's going to be you, right, as the owner. So where do we actually go to find serious remote candidates? We're going to look at that. So again, instead of letting easy apply flood your inbox, you want to be very intentional about where you post. So LinkedIn is great. I always say LinkedIn is great, but only if you're doing targeted outreach with recruiters. So if you don't have LinkedIn Recruiter and you are looking to hire, this is a must. And it's not just passive posting, right? You want to make sure you're very intentional with your posts. Then we have remote job boards. So this is the remote focused job board. So there's a lot of these. Don't take these to take them with a grain of salt, because obviously there's many out there, and do your own research. But I've liked in the past, We Work Remotely, Remote Co, Flex Jobs, right? These are remote focused job boards that are going to attract candidates who already know how to work remotely. So their entire job board is just of people who are remote workers and are used to working remote, right? And then also, never underestimate your referrals. So I always say this, the best remote professionals, they often recommend each other, right? So never underestimate as far as referrals can go. This is really key. And then also I mentioned something here, which is post your descriptions and applications on all of these. Don't just choose one that you like best. If you can and have the ability, and obviously the funds, because most of these are free, you can go ahead and mass post all of those job descriptions to as many job boards as you can. And this is going to get you a lot of good candidates in the door, right? And I know this is a lot of text here. So again, if you guys want to take a screenshot or if you guys want to take a photo, feel free to do so. So build a rigorous application funnel. I cannot say this enough, and it's something I will continue telling my clients, I will tell friends, I will tell any business owner, right? Here's where most companies go wrong when they are hiring remote. Again, they make applying too easy, and it's just simply not going to be that easy. So when applying is easy for a candidate, what you're going to attract is low effort candidates, right? Instead, what you want to do is make the application itself its first filter. So the application itself should be your first funnel and your first filter out of any people that you don't want to include, right? The harder it is to apply, the better that your talent pool is going to then become. And why? Because the people who actually take the time to complete it are going to be the ones that are serious about the role. So here's what I recommend building into any remote application. So these are on the right-hand side, these are a few questions that you can ask. So again, just feel free to screenshot or take a note of these. So these are just specific questions, right? Written questions to ask in your application that's going to reveal a lot about your. Number one, culture and management style preferences, right? So ask them, which management style do you thrive under? Structured, autonomous, hybrid, right? This is going to immediately tell you if they'll work well with your leadership style. So this is a very revealing question. Another one I always recommend is any role-specific tests. So if it's a CRM role or a sales role where the candidate will be using a CRM, give them a short Salesforce task, right? Or if you're using, I don't know, HubSpot, give them a HubSpot task. If it's sales, ask them to record a 2-minute pitch selling back your own product. And this is where also a lot of hires for specifically sales reps go wrong, because they do a role play in the second interview. So you'll see if you're applying for a sales role, they'll have their first interview and they say, okay, the second interview is going to be a role play. Pretend I'm the client and try to pitch me. And this is wrong, right? Have them do this in the application process, right? Basically, all of these things you should have already in the application so that when these people filter through, it's only the candidates that you want, right? So if it's support, make them respond to a mock customer chat. Give them as much as possible. Give them the questions that you would ask in the interview. Give it to them in the application itself. And then again, if it's something like English proficiency, don't let them self-report. Have them record like a 1-minute Loom video introducing themselves. Have them write like a sample client email. I know this might not be as useful since we have things like ChatGPT and AI, but the video option is a really good one as well. That way you can test them like speaking and writing in like a real way. And you're not needing to just trust when they fill in like, oh, I'm B2, I'm C2. You're not needing to trust that. You just have proof of it right off the bat. And then if we look over here, I think it's down here. Yep. So skill and assessment platforms. It's right here down below on the left-hand side. How do you put this into practice, right? So you don't have to custom build this. There's platforms like, and they're mentioned here, but there's platforms like Typeform, Jotform, just something as simple as Google Forms lets you add these questions with videos and file uploads. So like for testing, there's a few tools I recommend, right? So there's one called Test Gorilla, and there's one called Codility, and they're all mentioned here so you guys can take a look at them. But these give you ready-made skill assessments. So if it's a specific skill for a CRM or something like that, they already have ready-made assessments that you can just plug into your application. And that way it's all, done right away. And again, if you're managing volume, you need an ATS. So an ATS is an applicant tracking system. Again, this is mentioned here, but you're going to want to use stuff like Zoho Recruit, Workable, and things like this, right? And this can automatically reject the applicants who may skip the video. If, let's say, they fail a test or they don't meet the time zone requirements, it's automatically going to filter those people out and deny them basically ability to interview right off the bat. So cool, guys. And I'll give you a second if you haven't screenshotted, you can go ahead and screenshot. So the result for this, right? So again, this is a lot. I know it's a lot of information. It's something that needs to be broken down, but the result of building this application funnel, having your applicant tracking system, is by the time someone makes it to the interview, and I've mentioned this before, by the time someone makes it to the interview, you should already know that they have the skills and the alignment. The interview should not be about finding out if they're a fit. It shouldn't be about, and this is something there's a lot of hiring managers and owners that have this misconception. Don't waste your time on an interview trying to find out if this person is a fit for your company. Your interview should be a confirmation that they already are a fit, because you know that they are a fit based on their application, right? So that's the difference between you drowning in resumes and trying to like have back-to-back interviews of people that you might already know, like these people are not a good fit. And once you do this and once you put this in place, you're going to have not only hire the right people, but you're going to build that remote team that's going to last you, right? Cool, guys. So now we have the recruitment funnel. So this is something that I always show to my clients, and I show to people that I'm trying to understand the process of recruiting and the process of hiring. Here's some water here. And this is very important to have. The same way you have a sales funnel, right? Or a marketing funnel, you want a recruitment funnel as well. You need to treat your employees like your clients. So what I mean by this is give them the exact same importance that you give to, for example, filtering out your ideal verticals or filtering out your buyer personas or your target clients. Give finding your ideal employee the same importance, right? So in the first 3 stages here, so we have awareness, attraction, and interest. These top 3 are really important, right? So the same way, think of it this way, the same way you would launch an ad for a prospect, or you would launch an ad for a client, right? Getting them interested, getting them engaged. This is the same idea and the same skills you want to use for your employees. Launch an ad for your employees, launch an ad for candidates, post the benefits that they'll have if they work with you and grab their attention. That way you're also getting in the right people, right? It's not just about posting that application because anyone can apply. But if you grab their attention through an ad, you know, okay, these people are the right people I want in my company. Awesome, guys. So now we have the importance of an ATS. So I explained an applicant tracking system a little bit in the last slide, right? So this is about automating your filters. So having an ATS is super important. We have a few here that you guys can take a screenshot and look up, but again, I'm not going to give you like you should use this ATS. There's a bunch of them, right? A lot of them use AI, a lot of them are, all of them are automated. But you want to make sure you choose the right one based on your business, right? So in remote hiring, volume is usually the challenge. So what this means is hundreds of people are applying. Without automation or a system to automate, you're going to waste your days screening these people. So that's where the ATS platform comes in. So again, you have all these examples here. So you can set up rules, actually. It's kind of like a coding system. So for example, if someone skips the video, they're out. If someone fails a Salesforce test, they're automatically out. If their time zone doesn't match, they're out. So all of these things, having the ATS is going to automatically deny any of those people that even just get one question wrong. And this way, instead of reading those 200 resumes, you only review, for example, the top 20 that actually are meeting your standards. Cool. So we kind of went over that. And then this is just kind of something to keep in mind since we're closing off that section. And this is the mindset shift that I want you guys to kind of engrave if you can. Most companies use the interview to evaluate. So they say, okay, let's see if you're even qualified to be in my company, right? With the interview. That should already be done by your funnel. The interview is for confirmation. So yes, they have the skills. Yes, they're going to thrive in our culture. Let me confirm this by speaking to them, by getting to know them. And it's also just going to be like an introduction, right? You can see if you like the way they conversate. You can see if you like the way they present themselves on camera. If you're still figuring out like the basics during the interview, like if someone joins the interview and you're still trying to figure out like, does this person have good enough English? You're trying to figure out, does this person have the skills I need? You're asking questions that could have been asked in the application. This means your application process is not strong enough and it needs to be improved, right? So we're going to finish off this section, but I want you guys to take this away as like a lesson and as a core value to this section. Right. Okay, I'll give you guys some time to take in that information because I know it's a lot of information. See you guys messaging in the chat. I'll definitely review this in a little bit. Cool. Yeah, so people having existing resources. If you guys have this, by the way, like that's awesome, right? That's exactly what we want to see. So I saw, for example, Ray, you mentioned you have already your existing resources, so your significant criteria and all of these things. That's awesome. That's exactly what we want to see. And if you guys already have these types of things in place, like that's the idea. That's what we want, right? So cool. So section 3, adapting to new cultures in remote teams. So you know your hiring models, right? You know what your hiring models are, how to pick them. Now you know how to hire them, how to find them, how to get them in the door, how to get them on your team. Once they're on your team, how the heck do I adapt to these new cultures? How do I keep them on my team, right? This is something I always talk about, and we're going to go over it today. So first thing I want to go over is culture fit versus culture add, right? Culture fit, so this one right here on the left-hand side, I know you guys can't see my cursor. I don't know why I pretend you can see it, but on the left-hand side, the bluish bubble, it means someone already shares your company's values. They share your work style, your communication preferences. For example, if your team is collaborative and you're very flat structured, a culture fit is someone who's going to thrive in that environment, right? So it's someone who comes in and someone who plugs in right into your company, right? A culture add means someone brings something completely new. This person is a fresh perspective. This person has a different background. They have a unique skill set that my team may not have yet. So while the fit is going to give you alignment, the add is going to give you growth. So I always say this, but the sweet spot is somewhere in the middle. So it's this overlap right here. You want alignment and you want new perspectives. If you only hire for fit, what you risk is building what we call an echo chamber or groupthink. So this is where everyone thinks the same. And again, if you only hire for add on the other end, you're going to risk that misalignment or the friction between employees. Right? So how do you evaluate this in practice? This is also something I always recommend, but use personality tools, right? So in your application, you can plug in personality tools like the DISC. So the DISC model is a personality test that actually shows which communication style and work tendency they have. And then you also have the MBTI. I'm sure you guys have seen this, is like, are you the INFP? Like, which personality type are you? So this is really good to give to your employees because it's going to identify personality preferences like introversion versus extroversion. And these tools are going to give structure to what otherwise would just be like a gut feeling. For example, at Tandem Bridge, we make all our applicants take the Myers-Briggs personality test. That's another one too. And again, you don't need to pay even to have these plugged into your application. You can just do research on what questions should I ask that will reveal, for example, what type of business management model are they, or what type of personality are they? And you can just plug those into your application. So this does not cost you a dime, but it's important to have them in the process as well. And above all, with this is another lesson. So have a structured vetting process. Don't just say, and so many hiring managers do this, even it happened with me. I was onboarded on a team like a few years ago. And what I heard was a lot of hiring managers will just say, I feel like I'd get along with this person, or I just have a gut instinct. I just like the way they speak. Gut instinct should never, and this goes for anything in business, right? Gut instinct should never be your only filter for hiring someone. You should have a set of information in the application before you have a gut feeling. And if you do have a gut feeling, that's fine. That's completely fine. But if it's backed up with, guys, my camera switched off, which is normal. Sometimes it happens. But as long as you can still hear me, that's fine. Oh, there we go. Again, as long as you have the information to back up that gut feeling, then you're okay to move forward with the hire, right? If it's just a gut feeling, then that's a big red flag and we don't want to do that. Specifically for this, I go into detail about how to design structured vetting in my LinkedIn newsletter. I know I have you guys on LinkedIn. I know a few people don't have me on LinkedIn, but if this part interests you, if you want more information on it, you can dive deeper on the LinkedIn newsletter. It's called Beyond Borders. So yeah. If you guys want to type some more in the chat, you can let me know what's been your biggest culture challenge so far. This doesn't have to be if you're a business owner, hiring remote or hiring abroad. Just, I guess, type in like, what's your biggest culture challenge? If you are in Medellin, by the way, that can also be like, what's the biggest culture challenge you had to assimilate to that's been hard for you? It'd be interesting to know that. Okay, guys, so we take another water break. Cool, so our sections are coming to an end here, but one more thing I want to talk about on this section specifically, it's global talent equals global strengths. So what I mean by this is when you hire globally, cultural gaps can either break down your communication or become your team's biggest strength. What you do to determine that is very, very important. So how do you manage that effectively and choose where you're going to fall? So number one is, and I always say this, is do cultural onboarding. So not just job onboarding. It's not enough to say, here's your role, here's what you need to do. They need to know how your team works and what's expected socially, right? This is super, super important. Again, number two, defining your clear norms. So how fast should people respond to messages? What channels are used for what? How formal are meetings? Like, this is something a lot of owners don't even mention, is like, how should they be dressed for meetings? Should they always have their camera on? Should they not? Right? So don't leave any of this to guesswork. Make sure you're being upfront right off the bat. Another like simple tip, and I feel like this is something that should be kind of obvious, is rotate your meetings fairly. So if you do have a business model where you are doing a hybrid model, like I mentioned, so if you're offshoring, nearshoring a little bit, and then in-housing a little bit, so you have all three, you're going to have people in different time zones. So what you want to do is rotate your meetings fairly, your meeting times fairly across your time zone. So don't let one region always take a hit. What I mean by that is, a few years ago, I worked for a software company. I was in the marketing team, so I was a nearshore employee. And there were a few other nearshore employees working with me as well. And then we had an offshore team. The offshore team was our tech, our developers, and all of our back-end kind of workers, and they were in India, right? As you guys know, India and Colombia have complete opposite time zones. They're probably like 12 hours, something like an 8 or 12-hour difference. So what happened a lot is like our owners or our bosses would schedule meetings at the same time every day, 8 a.m. EST. Right. So for us, it was perfect, right? For us, it was perfect time. It was right in the beginning of our day. But for the offshore team, this was like 2 a.m, right? Or like 3 a.m. And they never minded. They understood. They were like, okay, this is just what I have to do. But this isn't ideal, right? We don't want any of our workers to be not sleeping because they have to join a meeting. So how can we solve this, right? So initially, this is why I mentioned don't offshore and nearshore at the same time. Never do that. Another thing is have a manager or a person that can oversee the offshore team also be offshore. So what I mean by that is have development manager that's going to handle the development meetings be also based in India. That way he can handle the meetings with that team at a time where it works for them, not a time where it works for the EST time zone people or the in-house hiring people, right? Because that's going to cause that conflict, right? So that's just an option there. But again, if you have the opportunity, try to rotate those meeting times. And then the fourth one is recognize and celebrate global holidays. So this is something I always say. And I always say it because it's very, very important. So this is going to be something that's going to be building your inclusion and your morale for your company. So this doesn't mean give them the day off, right, on their national holiday, because I know that obviously has a lot to do with your contract and things like that and your PTO policy. What this means is just recognize it, right? Like you can send an email saying happy X day, right? In Colombia, for example, we have our Independence Day is in July. So takes a few seconds to do a deep research on, not a deep research, but check out like what holidays are popular in someone's culture, or something where you can just send a quick note or an email that can make their day and say, I hope you have a happy Independence Day in your country, happy and things like that. So even though as business owners, we think this is something very simple, it's actually something that can make the world of a difference to our employees, right? And my camera switched off, but that's okay. You guys can still hear me. And then again, just going back to this, guys. So I want to give you quickly a quick example of what this felt like for me, right? So as I told you guys earlier, before I was a business owner, I was working remote. And I worked in a company a few years back. They were a software company and they had two owners. So they had, again, both were very interactive, both were very participant in our meetings and our emails and all of that, but they both managed two different areas. So we had one co-owner who he was North American. He was like an older white guy, and he was overseeing like our client-facing role. So he was overseeing our sales, our customer support, our marketing, and our client-facing teams, right? Where the other, he was also an older gentleman, so they were kind of similar in age. He was East Asian, right? So he was overseeing all of our development and all of our tech team, which also happened to be offshored in India, Philippines, and all of that. So again, they, for example, shared their culture match. And as you can imagine, they had very, very different management styles. So one was very friendly, one was very lenient, the other was more strict, more demanding. So for the development team, the strict approach worked very well because precision mattered in what they did, right? For developers, precision is super important and mistakes have huge consequences. So that's a management style that works very well for them. But when that behavior spilled into the sales and the customer support meetings, it caused so much complexity, even for me. And I'll admit that. What this caused was a lot of friction and a lot of emotional tension, because when the one that was overseeing the tech team, so who was super strict, super stern, he had input to give to our customer support team, or in my case, it was marketing team at the time. Not only did we not want to take the feedback, but because all we took was like, you're just being insulting, you're just being rude. But he was also wasting his time because we weren't going to listen. So this is another really key example on why setting those right cultural expectations matters just as much as technical skills. So they matter equally when you're building remote teams. So let's move on. So yeah, again, that section is really important for you guys to take note of. And we're finishing up here, but the rise of hiring and AI in teams. So this is so, so important. And I want to talk about something that's changing hiring forever, and that is AI, right? The reality is, if your team, and this can be small or big, is not already using AI, or at least learning how to use it, you're already behind, right? So on the left, right, this is what most companies still do. They post a job, they get flooded with resumes, they spend hours doing screenings, blah, 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 right? So it's slow, it's expensive, and it's prone to human error, right? If we look at the right side, so this is with AI-assisted hiring, sourcing happens automatically, right? Screening is not just like keyword matching. There's platforms like Pymetrics, you can see on the screen here, which I really recommend. They use interactive games to measure skills and personality fit. That way, if someone's applying, they're not just being bored out of their minds, they're actually having fun doing games that are going to prove their skills, right? Interview scheduling, automated. Culture fit. AI can now analyze communication skills to match candidates with any team dynamics, right? So it's not about hiring. It's not just about hiring, again. So there's tools that help automate compliance, payroll for like everything, guys. So payroll for global teams, things like that. There's AI tools that even automate that. And inside your business, so for onboarding and for messaging, there's Notion AI. I'm sure you guys have used Notion before if you're a business owner, or Slack. Slack is a popular one too. Slack just actually released their new AI. So it actually summarizes. So these are both summarizers. They save hours every week by automating your repetitive tasks. So again, this is super important. There's one thing I want you guys to take away from this. It's honestly this, and this is a key. So AI is not replacing you. It's going to augment your process. So you as the business owner should be already applying AI to every single process, and it's not just hiring. So from onboarding to project management, customer support, the companies that we're seeing win are the ones that automate everything that doesn't require, I guess what I would say, like deep human creativity, right? Because obviously there's creativity needed, but the ones that can automate all the difficult things, that's what you want to go with. And again, one big thing, and I've mentioned this before, is you need that good ATS. So this is where all your AI tools connect. So with an ATS, what you can do is you can set step-by-step automations. So resumes that may not meet your requirements are automatically rejected. If there's tests that get assigned, for example, like before the interview and things like this is going to ensure that only the high quality candidates are able to reach you. So this is all really, really important, guys. Again, take screenshots of the tools that I have on screen, but also do your own research, see which ones are a good fit for your company. So again, just to kind of end this off, the question isn't if you're going to use AI in hiring, it's when you're going to use it. Because if you haven't already, believe me, you are behind, and you will fall behind very quickly if you're not using AI. So section 5, and this is our last section, guys, and thank you guys for sticking on and staying on. I saw a few people did head on out, and that's okay because I know you guys may have other things to do. Again, if you guys did attend or if you even registered, you're going to get a video recording of this, so you don't need to worry. But this is our last section here, and we're wrapping it up. So proven retention and engagement methods, right? You know what, we've covered what type of what type of outsourcing models there are, what type of employment models. We've covered how to hire, the steps you need to get a good employee on board. We've talked about a good onboarding and a good process for the employees to actually get started on their work. But now something that's so important, I believe the most important out of all we've talked about, is retention, right? How do we keep them? How do we keep our employees, our good ones, hopefully? So again, retention is where most companies fail, especially in remote teams. And here's what I've kind of learned. And I will just kind of go through this. The letters are probably small to see. So if you guys need to, again, screenshot or take a photo and zoom in, that's totally fine. But here's what I learned. So number one, a strong onboarding is going to set the tone for everything. If your onboarding is rushed, if your onboarding is unclear, people are going to disengage within weeks or even less, right? So onboarding is the number one. Number two is clear career paths. So remote employees, or any employees for that matter, they're going to want to see growth opportunities. So you want to treat them like they're not doing a job. Treat them like they're growing a career, because that's exactly what they're doing, right? They want to see growth. They don't want to see stagnation. Another really important one is regular check-ins. So this is going to build trust. If you are the owner, if you have someone that can meet up with them like once a week, so weekly or bi-weekly, just one-on-ones, checking in, how are you doing? Do you have any issues? Is there anything you dealt with this week that you want to talk about? Anything that you feel you need help with? How are you doing emotionally, right? All of these things are super important, and it's going to prevent issues from piling up in the long term. So then we have recognition and feedback culture. So this is also super important. So without that intentional recognition, remote employees are going to feel very invisible. So give them their quick wins. Congratulate them if they did something right. Now, don't congratulate everything, right? Because they're not kids, they're not babies, they're employees, but just make them feel good about themselves. If they did something that wasn't on the KPIs, if they did something extra, if they went the extra mile to make a client happy, congratulate them and recognize it, because it's going to make them feel very happy in that moment and make them motivated to continue. And again, these are just two extra ones that I just thought of right now. I didn't mention here, but one is an opportunity for growth. So within your process, right, give them opportunities for that career growth that I mentioned before. So have them do soft skill training, have them do mentorships, have them do projects that are going to help them see that career path and not just doing tasks, right? Because they're not going to be interested in that. And then lastly is global pay fairness. So, and I always say this, if you outsource or if you're hiring abroad, obviously you're doing it to save money. But that doesn't mean that paying less just because of location is going to save you money, because you're going to lose them long term. So come in the middle, come to a balance of saving money, but also being fair and giving that employee fair pay. And this is really important. So to finish this off, and it's something I really want you guys to kind of know, is that if your employees are underperforming in any way, if they're missing KPIs, if they're leaving after a few months, if you're having turnover, the truth is it's not on them, it's on you. As business owners, as hiring managers, we need to stop blaming the team and start looking internally, start looking at ourselves. Was our onboarding clear enough? Did we set the right expectations? Are we giving them growth opportunities? Retention issues, right? Retention issues are leadership issues. When we take ownership of that, we can actually fix the issues, right? Instead of looking outwards and saying, oh, it's the employee is just lazy, this and that. Well, no, the employee was hired by you. So obviously something had to go wrong, whether it was in your application process, whether it was in, like I mentioned before, the funnel. All of this goes back to the business owner. And when as business owners, we learn to take responsibility, that's when changes are going to be made. And this is a video I want to show you guys really quickly before we finish off here. And it's a video from Alex Hormozi. If you guys, I love Alex Hormozi. I think he's one of the best, I guess, motivational influencers, business owners out there. But I want you guys to watch this video and you can let me know your thoughts.
Of figuring out why people do not do the things that you want them to do, which is one, did I communicate the expectation to you? Am I doing it with adequate importance to tell you how important this is to me, which is frequency and detail of communication and making sure that it's recorded down, right? The training, oops, that's this side of the triangle. The training is that I actually show them how to do it and then how to manage the other things in general that they are doing so they can get all this stuff done. Yes, check that box. And then finally, are they motivated or incentivized in order to get this done? And so I talked about their internal motivation, but there's also external motivation, which is like, do I need to realign their bonus structure? Do I need to rely on how they're getting compensated? Because if, for example, I ask them to do this thing and they're getting compensated for 4 other things and they don't get compensated for this extra thing, well then guess what, they're probably not going to be motivated to do? The extra thing. So we have to make sure that they are properly motivated, internally as a human being, in terms of they're aligned with the company. They see why this thing actually makes.
I got cut off there at the end, but yeah, guys, that's really important. That's basically what I was kind of telling you guys. And again, if you guys want to watch his content, I think he's amazing. Layla Hormozi actually talks a little bit more about like the acquisition side of like actually keeping employees and hiring and all that, because as you guys know, she's the actual CEO of the company. Alex is more like on the marketing side, but basically what I want you to take from that is he nails this point of retention isn't just about keeping the employees. It's in the exact same principles as keeping clients. So if you can't retain, you don't have a business. And all of these things need to end up coming back to you. Like, what did I miss? What did I do wrong? What can I improve? Because at the end of the day, and this goes for anything in life, if you always are blaming somebody else, then there's no room to improve, right? If you're always blaming someone for something, if you're saying, oh, I was late for work today because I guess my boss didn't text me a reminder like, hey, you have to clock in early today. I'm not on a diet because my friends aren't on a diet. If you always blame external factors, then there's never going to be improvement internally and there's never going to be personal growth. So I want you guys to take basically that from all of this. Is the reason I do these webinars, and I hope to have more to come, is I want you guys to really take that into account of There's always improvements to be made. And when you improve yourself, when you improve your business, then everyone around you, your coworkers, your co-owners, your employees, they're all going to see that and they're going to strengthen because of that, right? So yeah. And then this is our last section, guys. We're going to finish off with this. And it's why partner with a staffing agency, okay? So I won't make this too long. I don't want to pitch you guys, but why partner with a staffing agency? And this has nothing to do with us at Tandem Bridge. This can be any staffing agency. So with everything I've shared today, you might wonder, okay, do I want to do this myself or do I want to outsource this? So here's the thing, and I'm not going to lie, you can absolutely 100% do this all by yourself. Everything from building the hiring funnel to making sure your contracts are solid to figuring out your payroll, it's all possible. But I will say that for a lot of businesses, it ends up being very time consuming, ends up being very expensive, and it is very full of trial and error, like anything in a business is going to be. That's where agencies like us come in, where we basically are going to take all those moving parts off your plate. So this is not just us. There's a lot of staffing agencies or recruiting agencies out there to look into. But again, instead of like going to a hiring lawyer for the labor law compliance or worrying about those mishires, we would handle all of that and usually at a fraction of the cost of trying to like piece it together on your own. And for example, just to give you guys an example, recently one of our US clients had been searching for a bilingual project manager for like 6 months. So like 6 to 7 months. And I know you guys may be thinking like, does it really take that long to find somebody and hire them? It does, because if you're trying to find someone who really just fits with you and you want them for long-term, it does usually take that long. Within 3 weeks, with everything I just mentioned, all of these things implemented, because for our company, we implement everything I mentioned to you guys, we had the right person on board. So within 3 weeks, we had the right person. He's very happy with her currently. Their productivity jumped immediately. Sometimes I still kind of catch up with him and say, how's it going? But he's very happy. So again, if you're sitting here thinking like, I don't really want to deal with compliance as a business owner, I have other things going on, other things I want to focus on, that's exactly where we would come in. And then just so you guys do know, because you joined this webinar, all registrants, even if you left earlier, if someone maybe missed it, you get priority access to a one-on-one consultation. I know some people on here did already have a consultation with me in the past. So if you did, then that's totally fine. If you haven't, and if you're curious or you want to explore how this could work for your team, you can book that right after we wrap up. And of course, feel free to kind of check out our websites, our socials. We're always, and I think most of you guys here follow us on like Instagram and LinkedIn, but we're always sharing insights. I'm always making videos. I know some of you guys like the video content I make, but we're always sharing stuff and resources that might help. So even if you're not ready to partner yet, we always have free resources and help that will kind of guide you guys through the process. And yeah, also something to keep in mind, 70% of in-house solutions fail to fill their own vacancies. So in-house is not your option. Okay, so yeah. Thank you guys for joining it. This is the end of everything. I'm going to go through the chat in just a little bit and see what people kind of mentioned. Before we wrap up and before you guys leave, I want to make sure you know what you're getting after this. So you'll get a free PDF playbook with 10 proven strategies for hiring remote talent. And so that's really helpful. It's written by me. It worked for me. You'll also get the full recording of this webinar. So this whole webinar is going to be recorded. It's going to be sent to your email. So if you want to backtrack, watch it, take any specific notes, if there was a tool that you didn't get a chance to screenshot or take a note of, all of that will be sent to you. And then lastly, a little bonus. Again, if you already had a consultation with me, then you can forget about this. But if you haven't, and you're curious again about how can these ideas apply to my business, you'll have the chance to book that directly. And keep an eye out on your inbox, because sometimes, I think with Zoho, sometimes these are getting sent to spam. So if it does get sent to spam, that's obviously not ideal, and we'll try to fix that. But if it does, just try to refresh your spam and check your inbox. In about 15 to 20 minutes after this, you'll be getting the email. And lastly, I just want to thank everybody for joining. I know we got a few people that did. I know we got people that weren't able to be on the whole way. I'm seeing your guys' thank yous. So yeah, awesome guys. Yeah, and I mean, I will stay for like 2 minutes because I do have a Q&A portion of the webinar. So I will stay for a few minutes in case anyone had any questions, but if not, You guys are free to go, hop off, enjoy the rest of your evening. I hope this was helpful. If it was, let me know, and stay posted, stay tuned for your email invites, your email inboxes, and they'll have all the information. So again, thanks guys. You're free to go. Have a good evening. And yeah, thanks guys for joining again.